Hi everyone! Before we get into this week's episode, I just want to say that this is our final episode of what has been a really amazing season 3, so thank you so much. We're going to be taking a little break, but we will be back shortly with more amazing guests and a lot more Northeast stories. And honestly, we couldn't have picked a better conversation to end the season on. This week we are joined by the wonderful Sophie Milliken MBE. Sophie is the founder and CEO of Moja Group, where she helps entrepreneurs and business leaders raise their profiles and become recognised authorities in what they do. She's also the co-founder of City Ladies Networking, chairs SmartWorks Northeast, and she also sits on the Northeast Combined Authority Business and Economy Board. So yes, a very busy lady who really does wear a lot of hats. In this episode, we chat about Sophie's journey from working at John Lewis and commuting all the way to London to building and selling a successful business, starting from scratch and creating opportunities right here in the Northeast. We talk openly about money, independence, confidence, and why community and networking really do matter, especially if you're trying to build something on your own. And of course, we couldn't not talk about the MBE. So Sophie shares the full story of finding out, keeping it secret, and what it was actually like walking into Windsor Castle, all those nerves, curtsies and all. This conversation, I think, is just so inspiring and really down to earth as well. And I think it's just a real good reminder of what's possible when you back yourself and surround yourself with the right people. So as always, grab yourself a cuppa, get comfy and enjoy this week's episode and the last episode of season 3 with Sophie Milliken MBE. You're listening to Geordie Pride, Voices from the Northeast. I'm Hayley, and alongside my cousin Angela, we're thrilled to bring you the stories that share the heart and soul of the Northeast of England. Each episode, we'll dive into the lives of extraordinary Geordies and those who call the Northeast home, exploring their journeys and celebrating their achievements. From the time to the teas, from the arts to the sports fields, we're here to share the tales of passion, resilience, and of course, Geordie Pride. So whether you're from Whitley Bay or Washington, Gateshead or Gisborough, or you're just fascinated by the spirit of the Northeast, join us as we natter with the best the Northeast has to offer. Hi Sophie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat to you too.
Do you want to kick us off and let us know all about yourself, what you do and where you're from in the Northeast?
I always think these questions are a bit hard as you get older and you're rattling off all the millions of things that you get involved in. But I am from the Northeast. My parents are not from the Northeast, so I think I've got a bit of a funny accent. But I was born here, grew up here, moved down to London for a bit when I was in my 20s. Came back when I wanted to settle down and have a family and have no plans of ever leaving again. I've been there, done that. So in terms of what I'm involved in at the moment, I do wear a lot of hats. So I've got a PR agency called Moja based in Newcastle city centre, but we operate all over the country. I chair the female unemployment charity SmartWorks Northeast, which is doing some amazing work across the whole of the region. And I've got a few board roles, which are very region-based as well. So I sit on the board at the Northeast BIC, and also I'm the first small business owner to sit on the Business and Economy Board for the Northeast Combined Authority as well. So they're my main things at the moment.
My goodness, how do you find time for all of that?
Well, that is the challenge, I'm not going to lie.
So how did you get started in the PR agency? Is that something that you trained in when you were younger or?
Not at all, not at all. So when I went off to uni, I went to uni in Leeds because I thought that Leeds wasn't that scary and it was not far from Newcastle. I could come home when I wanted. It was a bigger city, but like I say, not as scary as London. And I went there and wanted to be a fashion buyer. That was my plan. I thought it would be really glamorous and exciting. But then within about a week of being on my course, I realised that you had to live in London really if you wanted to be a buyer. And that wasn't something that I wanted to do at all, really, although I did end up in London. But I then applied for the local graduate scheme at John Lewis, Bainbridge as it was back in the day. So I think I started there the year that I think they changed the name either just before I got there or just after. I can't remember, but it was all very, very new. I remember that we moved over to John Lewis. So I started there straight from uni. I've always been a grafter. I've worked since I was like 12, paper rounds. I had a job at Wimpy. I had a job in a restaurant, all sorts of stuff like that. And then when I was at uni, I worked in a nightclub and I absolutely loved it. One of my favorite jobs. So came back to Newcastle, did that graduate job. And because I think I had quite a bit of experience with managing people already, even though I was quite young, because I'd been a supervisor at the nightclub, I got promoted after 3 months, and then they used to basically just tap me on the shoulder and move me around departments whenever there was a problem. They'd be like, oh, you can go off and sort this out. But all right, fine enough, I would trot. And then I got to about 25 years old, I think 25, 26. And I got the tap on the shoulder that said, look, you're never going to get promoted again at Newcastle. If you stay here, you need to move somewhere else. And I was terrified. And then they persuaded me to apply for a role that was at the head office in London because it was a 6-month secondment. So that felt like a bit safer because it was only 6 months. I could come back. I'd get everything paid for while I was down there. It was really good. It was like the glory days of John Lewis. And I decided to do it, but I knew I wouldn't go back to John Lewis in Newcastle anyway. I knew that. So I remember feeling really sad when I left there. So I ended up down at the head office. I was there for about 8 years, but I didn't live there the whole time. So some of the time, initially I lived there. And then when I met my now ex-husband, but when I met him and we got engaged, I think it was just before we got married, I'd moved back and I was commuting. So for the last 3 years of that role, I was commuting down from Newcastle, not every day because that would be insane, but once a week I would go down, do a couple of long days and then a couple of days at home. So it was very modern. So when I left that role, I was in charge of graduate recruitment for the whole of John Lewis. So I'd kind of gone into lots of different roles while I was there, and that was my last role. Loved it, but I was really feeling the strain of doing that commute. Plus, there was a time where there was a restructure. And my role was moving to Bracknell, which, if you know where Bracknell is, it's really hard to get to from Newcastle. So that arrangement just wasn't sustainable anymore. So I decided to look for other jobs in the Northeast, but I couldn't find anything that paid anything like what I was on. I was on a really high salary. I had some great benefits. I did really love the job. So I felt like I either had to move back down there with my family, and my daughter was only maybe 6 months old at this point, 7 months old. I had to either move everything down there or like I say, find something here. But there was just nothing that paid anywhere near what I was on. There was nothing that was even similar job-wise. I think that might have been different now after the pandemic, where there's a lot more flexible ways of working, but then it just didn't exist. And I was only early 30s and I wasn't ready to I didn't mind sideways move, but not a massive step back. And I just felt like I would never get my pay up to where it was. So a chance conversation with someone that was commuting for a similar role at one of the banks in Canary Wharf, but was based sort of just outside of Leeds. And we ended up setting up what was my first business. And it was a business where we used to run, it was a graduate employability and recruitment business. So what we used to do is design assessment materials for big companies like M&S, Boots, AXA, people like that. And then we used to work with universities to prepare their students to get graduate jobs. So we ended up with this quite creative model where we would hire out football stadiums and put hundreds of students through a mock assessment centre in a day. And that was the bit that made that business really successful. He left after a couple of years, and then the business just skyrocketed at the point where he left. And then I got approached to sell it in 2018. The deal went through in 2019. I stayed to do my earn out for a year. And then into that second year, I started really hating it because I really didn't like the people I'd sold the business to. I felt they were really unethical. I thought the investors were really unethical. And I decided to leave. That was January 22, 16th of January 2022. And that day that I left that business, I registered what is the business I've got now, which is Moja. So had no PR experience whatsoever. And I say we're a PR agency because it's easier for people to understand, but really we do personal branding for founders. So what had made my business successful was when I became really well known for what we did in the industry. And that was through things like writing a book, doing a TEDx talk, winning awards, speaking at events, all these different things. And I felt like there was an idea in there where I could do that for other people. So because I had some money behind me, because I'd sold that first business, it meant I could open an agency up quite easily because I had the money to get an office, get some kit. We do podcasting, so I had to build a podcast studio and also bring a team across. So it was startup mode, but a bit less stressful in some ways than when I did it the first time. I say it was less stressful. It's probably more stressful because I had all these people that I was like paying and we didn't have any income initially. So in some ways, probably more stressful than doing something out of the, spare room or whatever. But that's how that all came about. I knew we could do it for other people. It was quite niche at that point, still is. I don't think anyone's offering exactly what we're offering. And then fast forward 3 and a bit years, and I suppose coming up to 4 years now, although we didn't begin trade until the March or the April. And we're doing all right. So that kind of brings us up to date, I suppose, in that sense.
Wow, that's amazing. Just that whistle stop tour. It's like, how did you get there? My God, that is really impressive. How do you see that difference between the North and the South with things like, especially when you were recruiting people for graduate programs? Is that a big problem these days for people just moving about and celebrating being in the Northeast?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally close to the jobs market in the same way anymore, other than I employ people, obviously, for my business. I think what I used to find then was that there were far more opportunities in London just because of the scale of the place. So for me, I can't even remember what I was on now, and it would be irrelevant now because wages have gone up so much in terms of minimum wage and living wage. It's compressed everything and done all sorts of weird things. But I do remember I was the highest paid section manager at Newcastle because they used to tell me that all the time, and I'd be like, well, yeah, but I'm also the best. I'm working my ass off and like doing a lot, and I was good. I was ready to get promoted, so I owned that. I was very confident with that. When I went to London, I trebled my salary in about 2 years. It was wild. And part of that was just that there were more opportunities to get promoted. So it was easier to do. Now, I think it's probably still the case. However, I would also probably imagine that there are more opportunities in general across the North because there is more remote working. There are more flexible options where people can do a day in the office, or I've got friends that only do a day or two a month in the office for various jobs, so that creates lots of flexibility in itself. But I think you see in places like Manchester and Leeds as well, where there are far more opportunities than there ever were in the North, and I think it's there for the taking. And I think people need to be creative with and open-minded around the opportunities that are there. So I think it's a lot better than it was. And I think COVID's helped with that. Remote working wasn't a thing back in the day. It really wasn't at all. And people are very comfortable with that now. So, if I didn't have a business and I was looking for a job, I would probably try and get a job in Manchester or London that pays loads of money, where I only had to go in once a fortnight, once a month, whatever that would be. That would be what I would do if I was motivated by money, which I am to a point. To a point. I don't want to do something for pennies. It's got to be worth my while. So that would be the approach I would take now.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit motivated by money, aren't we?
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No, I think there is a little bit of a stigma, though, isn't there? Like, people, as soon as you mention money, everyone always like the back off, and they seem quite offended by it. And I see nothing wrong with it. It's like our world runs on money. Like, we get opportunities and experiences based on money. So, like, why does that not drive people? I think it's.
Do you know what I think it was for me? I've always enjoyed earning my own money and feeling independent. So that's why I've always had a job for as long as I can remember. And I've always been quite enterprising. Where it really kicked into play for me was when I left John Lewis and I set that first business up, and 6 months later I was getting divorced and I had hardly any income because it was a new business. So I had a little bit of savings, but not loads. Had to give my ex-husband some money in the divorce, and I was absolutely broke, like properly broke, because I couldn't in those days, it was only sort of, well, it was a while ago now, to be fair, it was about 12 years ago now. But back then, you could not get a mortgage if you were self-employed unless you'd been self-employed for quite a long time, because you had to prove that you had the accounts to back up that you could pay for stuff. So when I got divorced, I had to, well, first of all, I rang the bank and pleaded with them to just let me carry on paying the mortgage payments. And they said no, because of all those reasons. So my dad kindly offered to go on the mortgage with me, but because he was older, the mortgage term went down. So back then I was on a 4.99% fixed rate for 5 years. Because of his age, we were on about 23 years on the mortgage, but because of my dad's age, it went down to either 10 or 11 years. So the payment went up loads. I think we were paying £650 a month. God, I would love that now. £650 a month, but it went up to about £1,200, and I wasn't even earning that. And then I had £1,000 a month in nursery fees for my daughter, and I was earning, like, I think we used to take about 24 grand as a salary out of the business in the first couple of years. So I was absolutely skint. I was fortunate that I was able to borrow some money from my parents that I did pay back. So that helped me for a bit. But I remember, like, that first year, our holiday was a day trip to York. Like, that's what we did, because I had nothing. So for me, when I talk about money now, what having money then did for me was give me freedom to do things. It gave me freedom to make choices, to be able to go on lovely holidays. You know, me and my daughter have been around the world. We've done all sorts of brilliant things together, and it just takes the pressure off. So I don't feel embarrassed or ashamed to admit that I am motivated by money. I think when you do end up being successful financially, and that's not what success necessarily is, I think there's lots of other things, but when you have financial success and freedom, you actually become quite chilled out about it, as long as you've got the money to do the things that you want to do. You know, I've never been motivated by fancy cars, and I've got lots of business friends that will rate, oh, I've just got this car and it's got this, that and the other. You know, the car I've got is quite a basic Audi that I got when I sold that business. So it was nice at the time, it was new, but it's a tiny little Audi. It's not fancy. I've had that for 6 years. I don't care about getting a new one. I hate driving, for one, but I'm really not bothered about stuff like that. But I'm more bothered about having a nice home that is comfortable in a great location. All of these things are more important than having the opportunities to decide how I spend my time, and that's what money gives you.
Absolutely. If you were to give somebody advice that wants to kind of start off, what advice and what sort of tips would you give someone?
This is a really interesting question, because I think it's quite hard to find out where to go, particularly in the Northeast. So one of the projects that I'm doing with the Northeast Combined Authority is a female founders project, where we want to identify what support is available for female founders at whatever part of the journey they're on. So we're in the research phase at the moment. So we've just done some surveys and we're about to do some interviews. We've got a research company doing this for us. And then what I see happening at the end of it is almost like a map. So someone that's starting out will go, oh, this is what's all available to me. Someone that's scaling, right, this is the bit I need. So it doesn't exist yet. So I think it's very disjointed in the region, and you don't know, it's potluck. You might be, and a lot of it as well, when you talk about things like funding, is a postcode lottery, because you could be in Gateshead and not be eligible to get anything, but you could be in Sunderland and entitled to all these different bits of support. But then also you don't even know unless someone tells you anyway. So it's not great. So if I was giving someone advice at this point in time, as someone that actually had been living in London, came back to Newcastle and only knew business people in John Lewis, that was my network, was just John Lewis people. I think the biggest thing that you can do is get out and network and create your own support system. So for me, there was terrible networking when I first moved back to Newcastle. It was really cringe. It was like old blokes who all seemed to do accountancy and talked about golf and like really boring things, and I just felt, oh my god, these are not my people. I feel really uncomfortable. I felt just no confidence and just really like a bit of an imposter, and just like I don't belong in this world. And then I went, and also networking takes ages, so you've got to figure out quickly where you want to be to make the most of your time, otherwise you'll never get any work done. So for me, I joined something that was called Forward Ladies at the time. It's something else now. It doesn't exist in the same way. And that was a women's only networking, but it was really, really good. And I met a group of 6 women. There were 7 of us that became quite pally. We would meet each month at these events, and we were all so different. And we became friends, and we set up a group chat on Messenger, and we used to talk about business stuff, but then it became quite personal, and we'd go out for wine and dinner and all this stuff. And most of us are still quite tight now. We still see each other. So they're some of my best friends. But I think that then have been part of that network then allows you to meet other people who, when you need something, they'll know who to recommend you to. And that has a really big impact, to the point where, and I probably should have mentioned this in my introduction, when the owner of Forward Ladies, who was based in Leeds, she decided to sack off the breakfast events. So Newcastle was one of 10 events that she used to run. She decided to close down the breakfast events, and a few of us in that little network that I'd formed decided to buy the breakfast business from her and buy the database. So we bought it and transformed it and renamed it as City Ladies. So that now exists. Unfortunately, we launched it the 2 months before the first lockdown, so it was terrible timing. But that business, if I had the time and the effort to put into it, could be a really successful business on its own. So we'll run breakfast events in Newcastle, London, and Paris. And next year we're going to do Northampton, hopefully Manchester, hopefully Leeds, hopefully Edinburgh, and Nice in the south of France randomly. So we've got big plans for that. And I think that it is that network. So I would be saying you've got to surround yourself with good people. So for me, none of my family have ever had a business. I've got no role models in my family of people that have done what I've done. I had my parents ask me for years when I was going to get a job, because they just didn't realize that actually the business was a job. They get it now, but they didn't then. So you need people that are going to lift you up and be your cheerleaders and give you that encouragement along the way.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, it definitely is great advice, because when I started off, I've always been employed up until 2 years ago. And when I reached out to a business startup company, they offered lots of funding. And then until obviously recently, this last year or so, I've had to kind of just go it alone, basically, because to be honest, the advice was shocking. Wasn't great. They promised funding, and then they said, yes, you can have funding, but you've got to put £3,000 towards it. Then it's like, well, I haven't got £3,000. It's like, trying to help these people, trying to get business up and running and stuff. So I've kind of just basically done it myself, but I have a good network and some role models and things like that, because my dad was in business many moons ago when he was alive. So for me, I think it's just about knowing these groups that you've just mentioned, Sophie. I think that's, amazing. And I will reach out to those groups as well. And some great advice. Tell us a little bit more about how you came from working from John Lewis to sort of reaching out to this. Was it just something that you kind of thought, what, there's nothing in the Northeast for this, for ladies, let's just do it?
Well, City Ladies, I guess it's 2 different things. So from John Lewis to having that first business, it was because my role was moving to a different location. I didn't want to do it. And obviously all the things I was saying there around not being the same well-paid opportunities. So that was when I started the first business. City Ladies is more recent and is just a hobby, to be honest. And I think it was when the owner of Forward Ladies decided she didn't want to run those breakfast events anymore. I was like, no, these are the best bit of your business. So she still does other stuff. But for me, I knew how pivotal that breakfast event had been to me and my confidence and my own network and my business. So when a few of us decided, right, well, we'll just take it on as a hobby, it was a no-brainer, because I knew it would work. And, Newcastle event sells out every month. We run them. We've got a partnership with the Hilton, so we have amazing venues. We ran the Newcastle one. It was actually yesterday morning, and we had Amy Whitfield, who's the founder of the AAA food tours. I don't know if you've seen those. She was amazing. She was just brilliant. And I think, the energy that you get from, because the way it works is the comfort networking. We'll have half an hour of just general networking, and then we'll sit down, do a round of introductions, and then it's the speaker. And the speakers that we get are just so inspiring, and they can be at all different stages of their business. But there's something for everyone with the speakers. Or sometimes we'll do something that's more practical rather than their journey. But I always feel really energized after doing that. And I felt really, even now, like a day later, I'm like, God, that was really good yesterday. And I've seen all the stuff on LinkedIn where people are tagging her in, saying how brilliant it was. And I just feel proud that we've been able to take that on and be able to continue with it, because I think it's great. I think it's really, really good network for people.
I think it makes such a big difference as well, like you say, like, because I started network, and at that point, that's when I started to make connections, and word of mouth, isn't it? Like, oh, I know someone, I know this person who can connect you with this person. And I think it's like, I became self-employed 2017, and I felt so alone. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I didn't know who to reach out to, what to do, like where to look for things. And then I started to join little groups, and then that's where it kind of explodes and gets, it starts getting a life of its own, doesn't it? What I always find is that when people own their own business, when they start connecting, that's where the magic really happens, because we've all kind of got this entrepreneurial spirit. We're very creative. We can think of things. And when you put that together in one room, the things that can happen, I think, are really quite exciting. And that's why I love it so much as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about SmartWorks? Because I only heard of SmartWorks probably about 5 years ago. I don't know how long it's been running, but there was a lady in London that I used to work with as a client. She's worked in fashion, and what she used to do, she used to go into the SmartWorks group, and she used to give people who were going for like job interviews and stuff style advice. I thought it was amazing at the time, and it just sounds like a wonderful charity. Like, do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so I'd always admired SmartWorks, and it came to Newcastle. So the charity overall is just over 10 years, probably 11 to 12 years old now, actually. And started in London, was founded by a fashion journalist and some friends, and they kind of started it up as an idea, and it's obviously grown into a national charity. SmartWorks, what was SmartWorks Newcastle, but we've recently rebranded to SmartWorks Northeast, literally in the last few weeks. It came to Newcastle in 2018, so we are coming up to, we'll be 7, I think, in April. So I knew when it arrived, I was like, oh, that's a really good fit for me, because I had the first business, and we were all about employability of students. So there was a link there, and I've always liked supporting women, so there was a link there too. And I used to always say to them, if you ever need anyone, I'd love to get involved. What I didn't realise then was how small it was. So it started with one part-time member of staff, a handful of volunteers, and a board that kind of all knew each other, that just sort of got it up and running. So there was never really an opportunity to get involved, because they were always just treading water and just trying to get everything going. Now, then fast forward a few years, and they advertised a role for chair of the board. And it was funny, because one of my team who's moved with me across businesses, she just said to me about 3 weeks earlier, please don't take on anything else next year. We need you around, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, no, yeah, I'm going to calm it down. I said, the only thing will be if something comes up for SmartWorks, because I've always really wanted to work with SmartWorks. And then literally 3 weeks later, I see on LinkedIn chair of the board, and I was like, oh my God, that's like literally my dream voluntary role. So I saw it advertised, and I was like, I've got to go for this. So I applied for it. It was quite a full-on recruitment process. Bear in mind, like, you don't get paid for this stuff. So it's like, God, I'm really having to go through it. What was interesting was that was the first role that they'd ever advertised externally. And since I've come on board, everything gets advertised as it should do. That's the proper way of doing things. So they wanted someone that was more commercial. They had quite a public sector background board. And they wanted someone that was more commercial, that was going to encourage them to hit more numbers, because my view was, as soon as I got in, was if we are all giving our time to this organisation, we need to have a bigger impact. I don't want to have everyone, you're going to give the same amount of time whether you help 20 women a month or 100 women a month. So let's go for the 100. So I joined in February 21. So it was a weird time, because it was during the pandemic. So all the pictures of me when we announced my appointment, I've got terrible hair and really bad eyebrows, because it was when you get anything done. So I don't love those pictures. But since then, I've been doing that for 4 years. Yeah, I must have been 21. So four and a bit years, coming up to 5 years now. And it's grown a lot since then. So we've moved buildings twice. We've actually moved offices 3 times. We've literally just moved into our new home, which is opposite Newcastle Cathedral. And I'm hoping we're going to be there for a while because it's quite stressful moving and we want to be in the same place. And we provide interview, clothing and support to unemployed women across the whole of the North East, which is why I wanted to change the name, because as you all know, a woman in Sunderland probably doesn't identify with SmartWorks Newcastle. So SmartWorks North East helps us with things like that. So they can either access the service in person or we can do it virtually. And they usually access the service at the point where they've got a confirmed job interview. And then they'll get an hour with a stylist who will have picked out some things based on their shape and their preferences. So they'll get a lovely outfit. And that's really important because a lot of the women that come to us, you know, there's some stats, the stats are due to be updated, but I don't imagine they'll be much different. They've typically been out of work for 5 years or more. They've applied for 33 jobs before they've secured this job interview. That is a lot of jobs. They quite often have been out of work because they've either been caring for children or other people, or they've been in maybe an abusive relationship or challenging home situation. So their confidence is quite low. And if you think about if you were in that situation, having a nice outfit or putting yourself first has probably not been happening. So for us to invite them in for a cup of tea and a biscuit and spend time on them can be quite transformational. So you see them come out of the dressing room and they look amazing. And we give them a full outfit. At this time of year, we might have to give them a coat as well, maybe a handbag, shoes, so they get the full thing and they look incredible. And that's theirs to keep. And the clothing is fantastic quality. We've got national and regional partnerships with big clothing brands, a lot of designer brands as well, which, you know, again, is just incredible. So we've got the majority of the clothes that we've got are new, or if they've been donated, they're very, very high quality. We've got very high standards. We don't want anything that doesn't look perfect. So they get that hour, then they go in with an interview coach to practice for the interview that they've got lined up. And they just come out feeling so much more confident. And then we have a success rate in the Northeast of around about 70%. It sort of dips above and below at various points. So 70% of the women going on to secure a job within a month of their appointment with us. So it's a very simple service, but it's really, really effective. And we've now grown from what I described before to having 5 members of staff and 63 volunteers across various different roles. So stylists, interview coaches, ambassadors, allies, and the board. So all volunteers. So we are very much volunteer led, and we actually won a King's Award for Voluntary Services a couple of weeks ago, which is like an MBE for charities. So it's been amazing to be able to celebrate that with all the volunteers, and we'll get to have a little party soon. So that's going to be incredible. So yeah, it's a brilliant charity. I absolutely love it. I'm going to really struggle when I have to leave, because you sign up to do a term of 3 years and it can be renewed 3 times. So I'll be in February 27 will be the end of my 2nd term, and I don't know yet whether I would do a 3rd. In my head, I would like to, in my heart, actually, I would like to, but in my head, I think it might be time for someone else to take over. And I've probably will have done, I've done quite a lot since I've been there. We've had some high profile ambassadors that have made a really big difference to the profile of the charity. And we're punching above our weight for a small charity. People do know who we are and what we do, and that's what we want. But it might be time for someone else. So I need to make a decision nearer the time and see what it's like.
Sounds amazing. I mean, as a charity as a whole, it just sounds like an amazing idea. But what you've done for the Northeast one, that sounds fantastic. You mentioned MBE type award. One thing that I don't think you mentioned in your introduction is that you have an MBE. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, it always feels a bit surreal. So yeah, it's not something that I bring up, but I always get asked about it. So I got that I have to remember now. I think I was the 2023 New Year's list. So whether that then was 24, I can't, that's so bad, isn't it? It was only a few years ago though. It wasn't long ago. And it's a really weird, surreal situation when you get one of those. The afternoon that I found out I'd got it, it was a cold, horrible, miserable afternoon in November, and I'd been at my old school. So I don't know like which part of the Northeast you're from, but I went to school in Longbenton. I was at St Mary's School. And I'd been there doing a talk to the sixth formers, and I don't know why, but whenever I'm in that school, I never get a signal on my phone, which is quite good because I'm not distracted. But I came out and all these emails were like pinging into my box, and I had an email from, it was something like NY ONS cabinet office at whatever, something like that. And I was like, oh, that looks a bit weird. I wonder what that is. And I opened it, and it was a really bizarre email because it was an email apologizing for how late the attached letter was, which in hindsight, I would never have known it was late because I wasn't expecting it. And I don't know when these things go out. And basically it was saying that because the Queen had died, so it was the year the Queen had died, because the Queen had died, everything was later. So this was the first King's list that I was on, and this letter, it was about 15 pages, and I was like trying to, like, what is it? Like, what actually is it? And I was trying to get through it, and it was basically, it was a letter from the Cabinet Office saying the Prime Minister would like to put you forward to this, very formal, put you forward for this list. You need to let us know whether you want to accept it within 24 hours, which was a short amount of time, and that was all linked to this timing. And then I had to fill some forms out and stuff. So I was still trying to kind of get to, like, what is it for? Like, what have I actually got this for? And then it said MBE for services to business and to education. And I was like, oh, right, cool. Because once I realised what it was, I thought, oh, it'll be for the charity. Because you're meant to get them for stuff that's outside the day job. So I thought, I've done a lot for charity, and I've always had a voluntary role since I was about 23. So I thought that's what it was for. And then it wasn't. So I was like, oh, well, that's weird. So, like, what actually is it? So it was a very bizarre letter. And then it said, you cannot tell anybody, otherwise you may not get it, you may forfeit it until 10 p.m. on the 30th of December. And I was like, oh my God, this is all a bit serious. So there were some rules. You could tell the press a week before. It was all this random stuff, and I was just like, amazing. So I decided to have a party at my house on the 30th of December and then tell my friends at 10 o'clock, because that was the rules. But my friends were like me, and we're all a bit boring now, and we like to go to bed really early. So my friends all turned up really early at like 6 o'clock or something, which normally is fine. But then it got to about 9, half 9, and they're all like, oh, I'm just going to head home. Like, no, you can't. Like, you have to wait till 10 and then you can go. And they're all like, what? So it was so bizarre, but it was great. Like, it was such a lovely party. And then my daughter got on in our kitchen now. It's a nice party kitchen. It's quite big. And she got on the coffee table and she was like, I've got an announcement that told everyone. And it was just lovely. It was so, so nice. And obviously my parents were really proud. And then you have to wait ages for anything then to happen. So you literally get a scroll in the post. It's mental, like a scroll in this big sort of, those poster tubes. So a scroll turns up and it's huge. It's like what would the size be? An A3 size scroll written on parchment from the king. With seal and stuff. It's lovely. I mean, I love all that sort of stuff. I think we do it. The English do that so well. I love it. So I got this scroll, and then it has all this information about your investiture will be on this date. So all I knew was it would be at Windsor Castle on a particular date. And you're allowed to bring 3 people, but someone had given me some advice to say, if you ask for an extra ticket, they'll probably give it to you. So I was always going to bring my parents and my daughter, but my brother lives near Windsor Castle. So I was like, can I get an extra ticket and he can come? So they said yes. And then when you go there, it's so weird. So you don't know who you're going to get. I got Princess Anne. I was a bit gutted because I was hoping for William. But my parents were loving it. My parents were like, Princess Anne's amazing. She's like that. She's the hardest working royal. She's great. So I was like, right, okay.
I'd want William as well.
Yeah, hopefully I'll meet him at some point. I've never met him, but there's time. So we'll go in, and you're not allowed to use your phone pretty much as soon as you go in, which was good and bad, because there was so many amazing things you'd love to take pictures of, but it did mean you had to be in the moment. And they take you into this room and they say, right, this is how it's going to work. And they say, you have to curtsy or bow. And I got really confused because I couldn't remember where they'd said at what point you were meant to do that. So my dad was like totally laughing at me because I curtsied like 3 times when I was only meant to do it once, because I couldn't remember which point I was meant to do it. I was really nervous. Luckily, they edited it out of my video, so I don't look like a complete moron, but it was, yeah. So you go through all these different rooms, and then I had in my head, it would be like a graduation ceremony where people are in rows and you just get up when it's your turn. And then as I was getting closer and closer in this queue, I realized that it wasn't like that at all. You go in on your own with your family. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't. So you go in, and then I could see the person in front of me was doing, and I was like, oh my God. And that was what threw me around this curtsying thing. So you go in and you're waiting for that person to finish. And then they like move your family around so they can see it. And then you get called up and they announce it. It's all very formal. And like the castle was amazing behind the scenes, because I'm seeing all these things you would never see as a tourist, because it's like they're home. You walk through this dining room before this amazing room. There's gold everywhere and like views for miles. It was incredible. And I got called up and I started speaking to Princess Anne, and she was asking me some stuff. I can't even really remember what she was saying. And then I do remember them saying she shakes your hand, and that's your cue. You have to, like, you leave at that point. And then you're meant to walk backwards. And then I forgot I was meant to walk backwards. You're not meant to. So I was just like, oh, so I get quite flustered. But like I say, they edited it out of the video. And then you just go out, and obviously she's put the medal on, and then you go out and you have your pictures taken, like proper pictures taken. And it was so lovely. And then we went to the Ivy for lunch, and everyone, it was like a graduation in there, because it was everyone that had obviously been in the castle that day was in there having their lovely lunch and things. And it was just so nice. My parents would never get to go to anything like that. It was lovely for them to experience it and to have them involved. And my daughter's very lucky, because she doesn't realise it, but she's lucky because she's been to lots of cool things and doesn't really realise how cool it is yet. She's been all sorts. So she's very fortunate. Like my brother wouldn't get to go to stuff like that either. So it was just really lovely, really lovely. And I think the difference that it's made since is it's raised my profile to allow me to do things that I want to do. So being, more visible with things like this Female Founders Project, that's given me a bit of an edge. And I've been invited to things that I don't think I would have been invited to without it. So I think it's given me that kind of elevated profile, because not very many people do have one. Not very many people in the Northeast have one, but that's something I would like to see change. And I got invited to an event with the Department for Business and Trade probably about a year ago now at Lancaster House in London. Very fancy. It was lovely. And the head of the business committee, or the honours committee for business or whatever, she was speaking, and it's Dame, God, I can't remember her name. I think it's Dame Jane Geordie, something like that. And she used to be the CEO at Northern Rock and then Virgin. So she knew of the region. She's never lived here. I think she lived in Scotland, but she knows our region. And I got to talk to her afterwards, and I was like, what can we do to get more Northeast names on this list? And can I get involved? Can I be on the committee? How does it all work? So I'm in conversations with her about how to do that. But that would be something I would like to do and like to see happen. But yeah, crazy.
I just want to know, how often do you wear your medal, Sophie?
Not very often. You know, like never. I keep making jokes saying I need to just wear it around the house or something.
Hoovering.
Yeah, someone told me, I was at an event where someone who had one, who's based in Durham, told me off for not wearing it, and I was like, I never know when you are meant to wear it or whatever. And she gave me some advice about you can order a pin version, because the actual thing's massive. It's like, it's like this, it's big. And she said, order a pin that's really tiny that you wear. And her advice was, you wear the big one to very formal things, and you wear the pin to like a black tie dinner or something. So I did wear that once. And actually, I'm at an event next week for the Lord Lieutenant, who's doing a carol service at Newcastle Cathedral, and she's invited me, and I'm bringing 9 volunteers from SmartWorks. That would probably be a really good opportunity to wear it to something like that. And she's asked me to do a reading, so it like that would actually that's what I should do. But I think I'll probably feel really awkward, and I probably won't. What I might do is actually ask her, should I wear it? And she'll tell me. So,
yeah, if she tells you, it's easier.
Yeah.
I'd have the scroll up in the toilet. Like if anyone comes to the toilet at my house, I just have it.
You know
right
what?
there.
I must do something with it, because it'll not it needs to be straightened out, because it's still in its tube. And I was talking to someone about this just a few days ago, actually, and I was saying, so Sarah Davies has got hers framed in her office, and is it at her house? She's got a frame somewhere. It's on a wall somewhere, and she's got the scroll. And then she's got a medal and a picture of her getting it, all in the same frame. And I'm like, I quite like that, but then you can't wear it ever if you do that. So I don't know whether she ever does wear it, or she could wear the pin version, I suppose. But yeah, that does look nice. So maybe I should do something like that. I don't know.
It's very Sarah Davies, that, isn't it? Very creative.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
That sounds amazing.
Have a party and everyone wear their medals.
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah. There'll be an opportunity, I'm sure. It would be nice to wear it at some point. It's quite cool because when you wear it actually at the investiture, you only wear it for about 5 seconds because she puts it on you, or whoever puts it on you. Then you go out to do the pictures, and then they sort of take it off you and put it in a presentation box, and they're like, right, off you go. It's really weird. So
I'm like, give me that back.
I'd be like, I want to wear it. It's mine.
Should have worn it to the Ivy maybe, but yeah, I don't know. People feel a bit self-conscious, don't they?
It sounds like you've done like loads of amazing things. Apart from the MBE, what would you say is like the biggest highlight?
Oof. I mean, I think that definitely is a highlight because it encompasses lots of different things. I feel very lucky. I say lucky. I work really hard, so you create your own luck. But I feel fortunate that I've had several successful businesses where I can pay people well to do their jobs, and ultimately that then provides for their families. And I think I take a great deal of pride in that. I take pride in being able to pay tax. I mean, I don't enjoy paying tax. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to pay a lot less, especially at the
privilege.
moment. But it is a privilege, and I do enjoy that. So I think all of that is really positive and good stuff. So I like that a lot. But I suppose, if I was thinking about something more personal, the fact that my daughter she's nearly 14 now, which terrifies me, 14 in a few weeks. And, she's had quite a challenging start, I suppose, in that me and her dad got divorced when she was only 2, and we did not have a lot of money at all, as I said earlier at the beginning. And it's not all about money, is it? It's about far more than that. And actually, it's funny because I was telling someone the other day, when I did start having money, I'd said to her, oh, right, let's plan some amazing holidays next year. Where would you like to go? And she'd come with me to Birmingham a few months earlier to do my TEDx talk. And she'd got to run around behind the scenes. She was only like 7 or 8 at the time. She loved it because that's really fun when you're that age, to get to be behind the scenes. And there was a box of Mars bars in the green room, and she probably ate half of them. And, she was buzzing. And when we sat down to do this holiday planning, she was like, I really want to go back to Birmingham. And I was like, no, it wasn't really fine. So that was quite funny. But I think the fact that, we've had to kind of navigate a very challenging relationship with her dad. He's got a lot of addiction problems, and Jess she's very sensitive, and she's very thoughtful, and just a lovely child. And she is absolutely thriving at school. She's smashing it. She's clever, really clever in like, I've always done enough to get through to the next level. So I did all right in my GCSEs, but they're not great. I actually did really badly in my A-levels first time round because I didn't realise that everyone was actually secretly working and I was partying. I had to resit them, and then I did all right. And then I got to uni and I did all right. So I was always done all right. If I'd put more time and effort in, I would have done better. But I didn't, because I liked working. That was more of a priority for me. She will come in from school and do all of her homework that she's been given that day. I don't need to nag her. She's properly square. I love it. It's really great to have a square kid because you just don't have to worry about them. And I hope she doesn't go off the rails. But I feel very proud that we have a very close relationship. She's now decided she doesn't want to see her dad at all anymore, which I think is quite sad. But she's old enough where I have to respect that decision. So I think, the fact that she's kind of come through some quite challenging situations at times and is thriving, I take a lot of pride in that.
Oh God, yeah. It sounds like you've done an amazing job. I think that's like, no matter what we do in our careers, I think if you can raise a kid in this world that's got a good head on their shoulders, I think you can't wish for more, can you?
Totally.
It's very special. I can just see your cat climbing in the tree behind you. I'm getting very nervous.
I'm waiting for the tree coming down.
Honestly, do my head in. Well, now that you've spotted it, I'm going to go and pick her up and move her.
I've been waiting for it to fall.
Honestly, it's doing my head in constantly. Oh, goodness.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, right, Angela, do you think we should move on to quick fire now? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, let me have a little look at my questions up. Oh, right. Your top spot to visit in the Northeast?
I would say it's not like a wow factor spot. Does it have to be a place? Or like, can I give you a restaurant?
Yeah.
Right. So it'd be Francesca's Italian in Jesmond, right? It's been around forever. It's a lovely family that run it. And it's just a classic. It's really good value. You know what you're going to get when you go to Francesca's. If you manage to avoid the massive queue, because I don't take bookings, you've got to queue up. If you avoid the queue and you get in there, it's just nice. And they do a half pizza and half pasta.
Oh,
So
that's a winner.
up, isn't it? So I'll probably go there like every week and I love it. Great. Absolutely great. But it's just good value, good crack. You always see someone you know in there, and I just really like it. And I can walk there from home, so I can have a drink and just like it. It's good.
Very good. I'll have to check that one out. Next one is, what's your favourite local dish?
Favorite local dish? Oh my God. I can't even, like, what would even a local dish be here? Like, I don't even, well, do you know what? I'd probably say a stotty. It's not really a local dish, but I do like a stotty, whether it be a sandwich or, well, it usually is, isn't it? I quite like a stotty. So if we can have that.
That's a good choice. I always, whenever I go home, because I kind of get stotties down here, you can get like flat tea cakes, which are something similar, but like they're a bit more stodgier, but they're not the same. So every time I'm home, I'm getting a stock of stotties. That'll do me good.
Yes.
Which brings us nicely on to this question, and we'll always ask everyone this one. What is your go-to order at Greggs?
Oh, do you know what? This is so bad because I hadn't ever eaten anything in Greggs till quite recently, which I'm embarrassed to say, but part of it is because I don't eat meat. So, you know, like steak bakes and all the things. So it's only, and I only ended up eating some Greggs. This is going to sound so like, oh, you moron. But I got invited to, I know Roisin Curry, who's the CEO at Greggs, and she invited me to, they had a Greggs VIP area at the Come Together Festival on the Town Mall. And I live near the Town Mall. And she said, oh, do you want to come see Robbie Williams? I was like, oh, yeah, great. And then when I was there, she said, oh, do you want to come back on Friday and see Kings of Leon? So I ended up going to, and that was the first time that I'd eaten Greggs, because they had loads of Greggs food. And I would never, and I hope Roisin never hears this, because I'd be, but I had a Greggs vegan sausage roll, which was very nice. And I had some Greggs pizza. So that was good. But my daughter likes Greggs. She's a full-on carnivore, so she would eat everything. So I've been in and like bought stuff for other people. But yeah, it's not bad. I feel like
I'm shocked to the core.
Call yourself a Geordie.
I know it is bad, but I do love Greggs. And actually, I had friends up from London the other week, and they stayed for the weekend. And my friend's youngest, she's only 7 or 8, and I was like winding her up, saying, "Oh, we've got Greggs on every street," and she was like, "Oh, you really do." So every time we were spotting a Greggs, she was like giggling away to herself and things. Like, visitors love the fact that there's just Greggs everywhere, and I think it's awesome. I think it's funny.
Yeah. Next one is, who would you think is the perfect Geordie Pride podcast guest?
Oh gosh. Oh, I don't know who you've had on so far, but I would say who's a great advocate for. I would say if you're looking for someone, do they have to be a Geordie, or do they have to? Could there be someone that lives in the region?
Yes. So that's the deciding one. Is that you don't have to be born and bred. You can live in the Northeast as well.
So I would have. I'm going to be naughty and have a couple. So I would say you would definitely want someone like Sarah Davies, who's very, very northeastern. And although she's not really a Geordie, she's actually, she lives in Wynyard. but she's a very, very good advocate. So she would be good. I also think Lucy Winskill, who's the Lord Lieutenant, she's a brilliant Geordie and she's had an amazing career. I think you'd struggle to get her to do it, but I think she'd be amazing. But I guess my wild card, I'm really naughty and I'm having 3 now, but my wild card would be Phil Wycherley at the North East Combined Authority. So he's from the Midlands, but he's taken on this role as Director of Economy and Culture and something else in the North East Combined Authority. And he is just such an honorary Geordie. Like he does these brilliant posts on LinkedIn on a Friday where he does a roundup of all the great stuff that's happening in the North East. Okay. And I think, Geordie Pride, he has it in spades because he's highlighting all the brilliant things that people are doing. And I think he's a fantastic advocate for the region. So I would say he'd be a good one.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to have to check those out.
So the last one is describe the northeast of England in 3 words.
I would say friendly, welcoming, humble.
Nice.
Yeah, I think pretty much kind of everyone kind of says those ones, don't they?
Well, it's all
always
about
comes back to the people. Yeah,
because we're canny folk.
100%. And you do see that, I think, when you go anywhere else. And I think people here are good people that want the best for everyone, and that's
lovely. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to share with the listeners, that they want to follow your journey, or if they want to get in touch with you, where can we find you?
LinkedIn's probably the best place. Do dabble in a bit of Instagram as well, but you can easily find me on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. And I'll include all of the links to your social stuff in there. And actually, if you send me a link to your TEDx talk, I'll include that in the show notes as well. That'll be really interesting to watch.
Terrifying moment of my life, I think, doing that talk.
I can imagine. It's on my vision board, but whether I'll have the balls to do it.
You do get a lot of preparation in the run up to it. If it's a good organizer, they'll all vary a bit. So you do get quite a bit of training and stuff in the lead up to it. But it was terrifying. My legs were like shaking.
Yeah, I'd probably keel over.
So I do recommend it though. It's a good challenge.
Yeah, it's on there and I'll aim for it. But yeah, fingers crossed. But thank you so much for spending your morning with me and Angela, and we've really appreciated talking to you, and it just sounded fascinating. I think I could probably talk to you for about 2 or 3 hours just asking you all of the things that you've experienced, but I don't want to keep you all morning. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries.
Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support Geordie Pride further, then don't forget to subscribe, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram @Geordie Pride. Until next time, keep that Geordie Pride shining bright.